Hey guys, welcome back to the Naked Audio tutorial series. This is Yong from Naked Audio. Okay, so for episode 2 today, we'll be going through soldering, basic soldering for audio applications for DIY or for any form of repair work on IEMs. So for today, we'll be going through a few items. Basically, we will be going through the required items for soldering. We'll be teaching you cleaning and techniques, cleaning and maintenance of the soldering iron, and lastly, soldering itself. Okay, so basically for soldering, you will need some basic tools, which is your soldering iron, and you will need some tweezers, and whatever you need to prepare your wires. For example, markers, your cutters, and also your connectors. For clamps, I'll be using a Blu Tack as a clamp for today, and our solder here is the Caster 44. So these are the basic things that you need. Some of the connectors that we'll be going through are 2.5mm jack, 3.5mm jack, MMCX connector, and also the 2-pin standard connector. Okay, I believe you have heard this term, thinning of the wires, thinning of the connectors, and also thinning of the soldering iron a lot of times, and you may not be too sure what it means. So thinning basically just means coating a layer of solder onto whatever connector you are going to work on. So for starters, we will go through some connectors. So here is a 2.5mm and also a 3.5mm jack. Okay, as we can see, there are exposed connector at the back. These are gold-plated connectors. For rhodium coated ones, we need additional steps, but that is for advanced. Okay, right now we have them in the center, and we have our solder ready. Our soldering iron is already heated up. This is Aoyue 968A plus. It's an advanced model. You do not need to use this model. What you can use are basic soldering pans rated at 35 or 45 watts. That's the recommended ones. Or you can actually get a soldering iron set with adjustable dial. I have linked an Aoyue model that I think that is very useful for this kind of application. It is very lightweight and it comes with a stand. Okay, so to start off, you have to check our soldering iron. As you can see, it is actually quite dirty and oxidized. I'll cover it in the cleaning process later on how to clean. But basically, we want it to be as clean as possible. This is quite an old tip already. So we want to coat the soldering iron with a layer of solder, but we do not want this big blob to go onto your connector. So this is coated already. So we have a thin layer right here. Okay, so basically, if I want to solder the part here, I will apply heat here, and we will feed the solder onto the heated area. As you can see, the solder will flow and cover the area. So we'll do the same for the three connectors. Take note that this connector has some plastic around it. The black part is plastic, so they will actually melt if we hold it there for too long. So we take a general guide. We try to keep everything under 2 seconds. So basically, we will just heat up the area and we'll feed the solder onto the area itself, not the iron. And we want to clean the solder as much as possible. This is the old solder. All the flux has been used up and burnt away, so we want to clean them off. Okay, so we go on to the 2.5mm jack. It's the same thing. We'll feed the heat here and we'll flow it through here. Okay, so when you are soldering, there is a lot of fumes being produced. These are poisonous, toxic, so try not to inhale too much of it. I do have a big ventilator fan above me, which I turn off because of the noise. And some techniques to to keep yourself safe, other than working in a very well ventilated area, is that you hold your breath, take a breath and hold it before you feed any solder. And then when you start soldering, when all these fumes come out, you exhale, so you blow them away from your face. Alright, I have some people asking me how do we make a 2.5 mm balance jack IEM cable. So here I will let you know the pinout. This is very simple. So for this the pinout will be here. We have a TRS, so a tip, ring and sleeve, and the opposite side, the soldering side, this is the sleeve, the ground, the tip and the ring. So the tip here will be the left channel, right channel is the ring, and the ground is the sleeve. So it is quite different from 2.5 mm balance jack. TRRS, so a tip, ring sleeve set up. So we have the sleeve here. This is not the ground, but it is the left negative. The tip is the right negative, right minus. The ring, the first ring is the right plus, and the second ring is the left plus. So right minus, right plus, left minus. This is the pinout for this 2.5 mm jack. Okay, so for cleaning wise, we want to have a wet sponge. The most basic is a wet sponge. So we have this sponge right here. We're gonna wet it with some water, and we will run this soldering iron like all around it. So the solder will cool down, and they will stick to the sponge instead of on the iron itself. Okay, let me just do it here. Uh, okay, so basically we want to wet it slightly. Not it's not gonna be fully wet. It's just gonna be like a damp. We don't want it to be soaking wet. Where you can squeeze water out of it. Okay, so right here we do have the soldering iron. You can see there's old solder here. Okay, so we will run it across. You can hear the heat being cooled down, and look at it. It'll be clean. We want to do this very often. Always before you start to solder something, you want it to be as clean as possible. Okay, so for thinning of wires, what I really like to do, we do need some tweezers at some of the time because things can get very hot and you're holding onto the wire itself. What I really like to do is have the solder resting on here. So we put it up some solder. This is how you, this is the one that you are going to use to thin the wires itself. So there are a few type of wires. We have a solid core wire, we have a stranded wire, we have lead wire, we have enamel coated wires. All these have similar soldering techniques. I'll go through the easiest one to do, which is uncoated wires. So these are just stranded wires. Okay, so right here we have a copper stranded wire. As you can see, the strands are coming off and fraying. So before soldering, we want them to be as tight as possible. So we will twist them around. Just do it, twist them. You have to check if it is twisted in clockwise or anti-clockwise. If not, there might be some issue with the thing unwirring. So we have a nice twisted one here. So let's go back to this part. Okay. So this is slightly different than soldering on the connector itself. You want to coat, you want to make a blob of solder right here. So we have a blob of solder, and after we have the blob, we will feed the wire into the blob. So right now it is coated already, as you can see. it is coated. So this is a non-paint coated wire, so this is very easy to do. And one thing to note, I actually strip a longer piece of this in order to show you the effect after soldering. But sometimes when we strip too much, or when we need that length in order to get a gauge or something, we might have something that is this long. I would like to cut it down and leave as little as possible thin wire. Of course, if you see the thinning is not there, you have to do it again. So we want to have a good, nice thin all covering all around the wire itself. Okay, so next up, let's add some length here. Next up, we have this leads wire. This is a type 2 leads. So you can see there's multiple strands of bundled wires, and they are all coated. First thing first, we want to do is the same. We want to actually twist them tight together. Okay, so leads wire, they are bundles of coated wires. This paint coating, we have to remove them. There are some tutorials online that ask you to use an open flame. This is not recommended. The best way and the easiest way is to actually use a soldering iron. Okay, I'm soldering at a temperature of 300 right now, so it should be slightly faster. You can do it up to 350. Okay, so there is no difference at the first part. Oh, we want to remove all the old solder because no more flux already. So this one we will get a blob right here. The same thing, we will feed the solder, but we will feed it for a longer time. You can see some bubbling on the wire itself. Those bubbling are basically the paint melting off or burning off. Yeah. So you will see a bubbling around it. We want to make sure the whole area is coated, so the front and the back everywhere. So this will get very hot, and sometimes a pair of tweezers will come in very handy. So let's show you the process. Okay, so when I'm soldering, I'm actually twisting the wires in the direction, so the heat gets distributed evenly. Okay, so right now you can see that it's coated quite nicely all around, and there are these bubbles. These are the flux and also the paint burning off. You can remove them using your fingernails. And now we have a clean thin leads wire. For animal for paint coated wires, they are very often seen. You will encounter this very often if you are doing some repair work, because all of the wires, stock cables and everything, they use this kind of coated paint wire. The step is very similar to the leads wire. It's actually exactly the same, but we have to take note because some of the paint coating are very thick, and we might need a lot of time. So the same thing, when you cut, you strip, you make sure that there are no fraying. So once we twist them tight together, it is the same process. So I'll just show it to you. Okay, so this particular wire has a very light coating, so it's very fast. So this is uncoated and coated. One trick, if your iron is not hot enough, when we are doing tinning, we do not use the front of the iron. We actually use the back, the one that's thicker, because it's actually hotter down right around there. If you are doing this a lot, you might want to have keep some nails, not a lot, but just some nails. This nail helps you in a way. If I am very near, soldering very near, the nail actually stop the soldering iron from burning my thumb. As you can see, it's actually touching, but it's not burning my thumb because of the long nail. I mean, it's not very long, but it's actually, but there is quite some length to it. And the nail doesn't burn so easily. So if you are going to do this for a lot, I recommend you get something like this or some protection. The safety is the number one thing of concern. Okay, so now we will be going through the actual soldering process. This is the most simple process out of everything. We want to have a tinned connector and a tinned cable already. So right here I have a cable that I will actually want to install a 2.5mm connector. We have a braiding and a finishing video. I'll put the link up here. So you can refer to that for cable building basics. But the soldering technique here is very simple. Okay, right here I have tinned already the 4 wires required. So this is a balance jack. I will need 4 wires. So this shortest one will go to the sleeve, which is the left negative. The longest one is the left positive. You go to the second ring. Uh, Second longest, which is the right positive, is the center sleeve. The first sleeve, the first ring, sorry. And of course, we have a mark down here. This is the second shortest one, which is the right minus. So this one, you will do the labeling and everything right before you actually do the soldering. So let's just remember: tip, ring, sleeve, right minus, right plus, left minus, left plus. On this side, tip, ring, and sleeve. So right negative, right positive, left positive, left negative. So how to solder this onto this is actually very simple. I'll be using this wire just to show you as an example on this. So we want to solder always the sleeve first because let's say I have something already down here. So it will actually block out the bottom. You might have a harder time to reach the bottom with a solder iron because you look at this thing, it's so big. So if I solder something here first, it might block the bottom. So we will go with always the bottom first. So just for show, I'll be doing the soldering on this the tip here. Basically what we want to do is we want to melt the solder on here and also on here together. So how do we do it? Wire on the connector, and we will use the soldering iron to touch both of them. If the connector is big enough, you can use the thicker part of the soldering iron. So we will touch both of them at once. They will melt together and they will form a bond. It all takes less than 1 second. So this is already soldered. So to unsolder, we will just do the same, but we will apply pulling force on the wire itself. So everything less than 1 second. We do not want to use too much heat on connectors. So let me just do it again. Wire on the soldering connector on the pads itself. That's all you need to do. Okay, so now I'm going to finish this jack. Okay, so one thing, always install the barrel first. You are going to end up without it if you forget about this step. So we have the barrel in the right orientation, and we'll do the soldering. Wire on the soldering connector. We'll touch the solder and go, and we'll do it the same for all this. This part we will require the use of tweezers because we are actually getting very close. We have to get the wire very close to the connector itself. So let's start. Okay, one thing I need to actually tell you, you might need to add some block of solder here, because we need some new flux. So that's all it is for soldering a connector. Okay, of course I'm very far away from the soldering. Because the camera is right in front of me and I have a mic right in front, so I need some distance. But basically, we can do it very nicely. I'll try to do it off camera and I'll show you the results. Okay, it's much cleaner down here. So this is how you solder on the connector. Okay, one of the tip that you might need to hit the connector. If you have a very large and thick pad like this, you might need to heat it up first. So not too long, maybe 2 to 3 seconds, and you can start to solder the wire onto it. It might help because sometimes you might have added a big block of solder and they take quite some time to actually melt. So you have to do your gauging, and of course after a while you will get used to it. While we are at connectors right now, I actually are able to show you soldering on 2-pin and soldering on the MMCX connector right now. So we'll start with MMCX connectors. Okay, I like to, as you can see, there's a lip here. I like to put the lip downwards and we will clamp it here. Okay, there is a inner and two outer. So the two outer one is the ground, the negative. The inner is the positive. So what we need to do first, we need to tin the connectors. So tinning is the same. We will only tin one leg. I like to do it on the right because I'm right-handed, and we'll just tin it. For small connectors like this, use a minimal amount of solder. Actually, less is better. Do not use a large amount of solder. So what happen? We just touch the solder on the iron on it, heat it up. We just feed a bit of the solder. If any case where you apply too big of a blob, something like this. Okay, it's very hot. I can't hold it right now, so I'll try to use a tweezer. Okay, something like this, and the two legs are shorted out. What you will need is actually a solder sucker. So this is not vulgarity. This the term for this. This is a solder sucker. So what it works is it sucks. It uses air to suck out whatever solder there is. How to use it? You look at this part. We want to melt them, and place this sucker as close as possible to the tip, and we'll press this button, and it will suck it up. So we charge it first. Okay, we sometimes might need to do it once or twice, but let's take a look after we use the sucker. So here you can see the solder has been sucked out. We might need to use it one more time to clean up all the solder. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is good enough. So we will do the soldering. This is actually the same process as the jacks, but just in a smaller form. We just need some more precision and some more patience. Do it slowly, get the aim correct, and we'll do it so that one time should be good. I'll be doing it off camera. Okay, so the left will be at the inside and the right is on the outside. So you can see the marking here. It's all marked out. When soldering on the MMCX connector, we want this part to be quite flush because the connectors that the casing has to be flush so that it can enter the casing. And we'll pour some glue on the inside because the center pin is able to rotate some of the time. So we want to glue it down and make sure it doesn't rotate inside the casing so that it will last a lot longer. So I'll do it another time. So remember, you just touch and go. Clean your solder first. And there we go. Okay, I also have a 2-pin connector right here. So when we are doing 2-pin, we do not have to tin the connector. Because it's a slightly different soldering technique. So we will like to use this with the groove on the outside. Most 2-pin or almost all the 2-pin 0.78 millimeters, they have a groove. We want it to face upwards because that's the easiest way to remember the pinout. So while this is facing upwards, we have 2 pins left and right on each connector. So for the left channel, the positive is on the left. On the right channel, the positive is on the right. So that's very easy to remember. 2-pin soldering, we want a slightly longer tin. So this tin is slightly longer. We don't cut it. So you can see this is the blue color, this is the left. So we'll turn it around. We will slot both of this into the slots. There are big slots here. There are some that doesn't have slot. Those are easier to use. So this one has a round slot. We will slot that in. Something like this. And then depending on how your soldering setup is, you either feed solder into it or you do it some other way. I'll show you because when you slot them in, it doesn't hold, they will drop out. So what I do is I will use a soldering iron to solder one side first. I'll feed some solder onto the soldering iron, and I'll solder one side, and I'll feed the solder onto the other side. So both of them are secure, and I'll feed the wire on the opposite side. So let me just show you what I mean. Yeah, I'll do it on this connector. It's more visible. So first we'll slot the connector in. I'll tin this one with a blob, a small blob. Okay, so with the small block, I'll just touch it. I'll just show you first. So this is not the end of the soldering. What we want to do is to hold it, secure it. And right now, we will heat up the big barrel, the gold barrel, and we will feed solder to bond this wire to the connector itself. We can do it one side or both side. It's up to you. Because a lot of people, they actually people that I've seen their work, they actually just dab the solder and that's it. So the connector is not as well done as it can be. So let's show you what I mean by feeding the solder. So it's the same as soldering a connector, a jack or something. You heat up the gold pin and you feed the solder in. So this solder will also flow to the wire and bond them together. Okay, so I have used too much solder, but the result is something like this. Okay, so I want to clean up this you see this too much solder. I can either use a solder sucker and retry, or I will just add heat to the other side, so I will let it flow to the other side. Okay, so by adding heat to the other side, you can see the solder is here, and this part is all flat already. So after that we will do the standard finishing for two pin, which is to heat shrink glue and whatever. Okay, and I also have forgotten to put in the barrel. So first thing first, anything that has a barrel, install the barrel first. Okay, it's a bit premature now to show you some advanced soldering, but this is really not that advanced. We are just dealing with something that is smaller and smaller. We have dynamic driver. This is a 10 mm dynamic driver, and this is a variant of the CI driver. So I'll be using these two. There are even smaller drivers that we have incredibly small soldering pads. We look at the CI. This is actually quite big compared to a TWFK where it's quite small. I don't want to ruin this just for a video. But as you can see, once you improve, you can start to work on something this small already. We put them side by side and you will take a look at the size. So the soldering size is so much different. But I'll do a demonstration on this here. These are cheap. I can damage them as much as I want to. So soldering on drivers, basically same thing. We want this thin wire already or animal coated wire. So those are really good. How do we solder? It is the same as how you solder a wire onto a connector. We just put them on it and just add some heat. Add a bit of blob. Done. Uh, this process has to be less than 1 second because these are PCB boards and soldering pads are the copper traces they are very easy to break off. They're actually quite fragile. The same thing for this driver. Once you try for a second and it doesn't hold up, you have to let it cool down and retry. You don't add heat anymore. So for this, they actually a paint coating. Let me remove the paint coating. So we expose the inside. Take a look at the two silver pads. Same thing, wire on it and touch. That's it. It is all soldered. Okay, I will need to let you know because some of these they are constructed in a way that these pads will fall off if you apply pressure. And this has happened to a lot of training. I mean, a lot of training will have to be done before we do this. What happens when you apply too much heat on the driver itself? Okay, I can't get it to happen here. But basically, the pads will fall off. So the soldering pad will fall off, and you will never ever be able to solder it back. So the driver will be dead, and everything. So one thing to take note, do a lot of practice first before you work on expensive items, especially on doing repairs. Um, I think that is all for today. I would like to thank you all very much for staying up all the way till the end. The next episode we have planned out, but I don't know what sequence we'll be doing it in. But I will be trying to do this bi-weekly. So we have the tutorial series every 2 weeks, and I'll try to do 1 or 2 videos every week. So stay tuned for the next video. Everything that we have used in this video, we can get them in the links below. We have Sgaudiohive Instagram page and Facebook. You can take a look and see if you like or follow us. Also, if you find this video helpful, do consider subscribing. I will be coming up with contents like this, more advanced contents. Eventually, I will be teaching you how to build your own custom IEM. So I'm working my way up. We have to get better gears, better quality stuff, and I'll try to come up better contents for you. Right now, I'm only doing video editing on my phone, so nothing fancy, nothing. So it might be quite boring for a lot of you, but I'm trying my best. We will try our best. We are not making any money off this video. We are giving away all this content free. So if you really liked it, do consider subscribing. And thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.